I hate a little too much on palm trees. I know. I mean, they're majestic and all, but they could be a bit of a nuisance. Also, it turns out a fire hazard. Did you see that video recently with a palm tree spontaneously bursting into flames? Yeah, apparently these oily trees could be quite the tinderbox, so you could add that to my list. But are they really that bad? Today on CityCast Las Vegas, we're revisiting a conversation I had with Lisa Ortega, Executive Director of Nevada Plants. And Lisa tells us we might want to give palm trees a chance. It's Wednesday, July 17th. I'm David Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Lisa Ortega, welcome back to CityCast Las Vegas.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure to have you here, Lisa, especially when we're talking about trees because you're our expert. Lisa, can you give us a quick overview of the kinds of palms that we can find here in Las Vegas?
Believe it or not, there are so many palms that we grow here. We think of the main two, but there's lots of other stuff besides a Mexican fan palm. There's palmettos, there's Canary Island, there's pinto palms, Mexican blue palms, Bismarck palms. There's some high, some low, some wide, some skinny. And I think there's a huge selection of palms. So we don't want to crop a genus or a species out when there's so much to offer besides what comes to mind is, the Washington fan palm. Let's get rid of it. There are so many other beautiful selections. I got a sago palm out front.
What's the Washington fan palm?
That's the one that we see all the time with the big fan. It's probably the highest percent planted here.
Do you have a favorite?
It's hard not to fall in love with the Phoenix dactylifera after you go to the China Farm date ranch. I mean, they're incredibly beautiful. They've got all that fruit hanging down and you get your date shake, and part of me just falls in love there. And I like a lot of the small ones too. For me, I see them looking good in small commercial areas or places where they want that Mediterranean feel. I think they're fabulous.
Yeah, it looks great. And I love that you mentioned the date shakes. We just recently had an episode talking about all the history of dates in the Mojave. And then I was inspired by my co-host Sarah Lohman to go and get a box of mixed dates from the region, from the Coachella region. And they were amazing. Oh my gosh, they tasted so good and caramely and all that stuff. The one thing though, Lisa, that I have heard a lot of Las Vegans say over the years, and I've been here my whole life, is that palm trees are bad for our city because they drink too much of our precious, precious water. So what about the water issue? Are they guzzlers or is that overstated? I don't know.
I think it depends on the species. Sometimes I think the big feather-looking palms, I think those take more water than your average fan palm. I've heard of fan palms where in medians where the water's been cut off for years and they look great. So I think what water requirements they have is a bit misunderstood.
Okay.
They're tough. Those fans are tough and they hold the water. They're very good with water. And on the Southern Nevada Water Authority, most of the palms on their list are no more than medium water users.
Yeah, I saw that and it kind of confused me because, I mean, I'm not a palm scientist or even a palm reader for that matter. I don't know what medium use means. I mean, they look like really big trees. Do people ask you about that? Like if they want to plant palm trees, what's your advice to them?
Truthfully, these days, I think it's mostly the opposite, that people are wanting to get rid of the palms. So that hasn't happened to me that somebody said, what can we do? We want to plant this awesome palm. Not lately, maybe not ever.
Maybe it's because of the misinformation. Maybe because some of us kind of hate the palm trees, or at least some species of palm trees or genus of palm trees, because they can be surprisingly destructive. And they also seem to be kind of feral. There was a short squat, one of those short squatty guys that just sort of popped up in my neighbor's yard. And then about 5, 6 years later, it took down our wall between the properties, and we had to replace the wall. And the removal, I'm going to tell you, Lisa, of that palm was an undertaking because it really had like become part of the ground in a way that extraction was difficult. I mean, do palms even make sense as a tree so close to homes? And so many homes do have them.
Not the ones you're talking about. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
they can come in on seed and take off on their own. And you're right, they readily sow in the soil. So that's a problem. I mean, very prolific seeds. Trees typically have the roots that go way out.
Yeah.
And they go past the canopy and they keep going. Well, palms are not that way because they're from the grass family. They go right down in and they kind of stay in a cone shape. And they are really strong and they're really good at putting out roots. And so they will push, once they get to the edge, they will push a wall over like it's nothing. They have great mechanical force. So we plant them in the corners by the pool, and it's so cute for however many years. And then they're 20 feet tall and the wall is breaking and the neighbors are complaining. And then it's a really bad tree.
Something that you said struck me there, and I've heard this before, that it's almost a misnomer to call a lot of palm trees trees because they're really a grass. Can you maybe expand on that a little bit more? Why do we call them trees if they're a grass? Or what is unique about them being a grass that we should be aware of?
Well, the thing about it is that it's got different roots. And then, much like a grass, it just grows up as one stalk with the growing node at the top. So it's growing from the top up all the time.
Oh,
But we have to call them trees. I mean, we use them as trees in the landscape. So, of course, they're going to get that. It's a tree.
let's just agree then that palms aren't maybe as bad water guzzlers as their reputation suggests. Um, where do palms make sense as landscaping trees here in Las Vegas?
They have this fibrous root. And because of the way that it's like a cone shape is structured, they're really good in smaller soil volumes where, you're wanting a 30-foot canopy tree in a parking lot. Well, how much root space are you giving them? Is that even possible?
Yeah.
Not to say that they belong in parking lots, but they're found to be very iconic here. And so there are those spaces where they're used like medians, where we couldn't have a big tree, where folks want to see the views when they're driving, like the Strip. They want to see the glitter and every sign and what's where and how fabulous it is. And that might be a great place for palms. I also heard, I guess this is true, that developers use them. So visually, you know where to turn into a strip mall because
Oh,
there's palms on either side of the driveway.
yeah.
It's true. I see it all the time. I've never noticed, and I've never turned at the palm tree.
Nature's signpost.
I'll tell you, trees are really tough for businesses when they impede the signage. That's one thing that I really like about palms is you just have that vision below them, and the head is rather small, for the height that if you had a 40-foot tree, you wouldn't see anything behind it because even though there's a detached sidewalk, we still drive. And so if you don't know there's an ice cream shop there, if there's never any indication that it's there and they don't get business. I've seen businesses fail on Boulder Highway. I saw it on Blue Diamond Highway, St. Rose, kind of the same things. We've got these big trees. We have to top them down, which decreases their life, or they get chopped down at night. I've seen that too, where
Ooh.
they're just suddenly gone. City trees just disappear. And there's this beautiful sign that's now showing, and I won't say who, but you're like, oh, you say, who did it? They're like, oh, we don't know anything about that.
Yes. The youths today and their animosity towards trees. And isn't that the paradox that you deal with all the time, Lisa, is that we want more trees in the valley, we want more shade, we want more coverage, and yet we have to be very careful where we put them.
It's true. I mean, if we really want lots of trees, we have to start changing how we do our signage. And Oregon does it and Washington does it, and you never see the buildings, but the signage is super close to the street. It's monument, but up close, and you know what's there, and you don't have to see the building because the signage gives you the clues, and we're just not there yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when it comes to, city planning for car culture, there are a lot of challenges. And that's what I'm wondering about too, is like, are palm trees, and let's just say that they're medium water users, are they the best solve in these situations because of all the things that you're talking about here? Or should we be trying to go low water entirely, but make better design choices so those trees don't get in the way? What's the solve here? Should we be phasing out palms in lieu of something else?
I think I talked to a few of the cities before this, and just not speaking for them, but just trying to get a feel for how they're feeling about the palm tree.
Yeah.
And they were mostly at consensus in that when it comes to their properties, their parks, they're not planting palm trees anymore. And if one dies, other than iconic, like the strip kind of thing, but other than that, if say it's an entrance to a park and a palm dies, it will be replaced with something else. I like the way Henderson said it, actually. I said, well, what do you have against the palm anyway? And she said, look, we're in the middle of Urban Heat Island and we want the biggest shade bang for our buck. And that's why they're limiting them. That's a great idea. I get that environmental trade-off that a regular tree can give so much more. That being said, I think there are those places where palms are incredibly important to what's happening in that area, like the strip.
Yeah, the medians, they're all over the medians. When they first expanded out that part of the Summerlin Parkway that goes out by, I think, either town center or beyond, it was just, it's now an iconic, I mean, this is over a decade now, that iconic row of palms that was going there. And then I just wondered if that was kind of the new thing for Las Vegas forever, is that every median is going to have palm trees. Is that the best argument for keeping palm trees getting planted in Las Vegas, the medians? Or I don't know, Lisa, why don't you be the advocate for palms right now? The palm lobby has hired you, Lisa. Give me the best 30-second pitch on why we should still be planting palms in Southern Nevada.
In light of climate change and everything else, we shouldn't be banning any tree species. Let's hang on to what we've got. We've got the water, right? So there's got to be this balance. What I see out there is our ash trees are dying, our pine trees are going down hardcore, and I'm not in favor of taking or banning any trees off the list. Like, what's going to survive? How hot are we getting? So we see a lot of trees we're using going off the list. I think there are places that are way too hot that these actually might be a great solution. I think that there is a place for palms. The way their root systems are built, they can take small spaces where big deciduous or pine trees would not work. I mean, they would just tear up all the asphalt, or they'd stay small and just kind of dwindle because they don't have enough soil volume. And palms don't have that problem. And then I'm going to think about Formula One. Might not be everybody's favorite. Formula One, the cars are racing by, right? Like in acacias and mesquites. And I mean, I think there's a place for palms. I do love their iconic nature where we have them. I think medians with high heat and low soil volumes are great places for palms. And if you think about it, you're driving down the strip, they want you, I think the casinos and all that's going on there when you're driving, they want you to see that, the signage and the glitter and the glitz and all that is. And when you put those trees in there, well, you can only see one side of the street. And if we're doing other trees for walkability in shade, I think there is place for them in those medians. I think they're an icon. I think and maybe this is just me, but I think they kind of lift the joint.
They exude a message, don't they, Lisa, of like opulence and like we're successful and we're doing okay. We can afford these beautiful palms and everything's chill, baby. It's going to be okay. We got palm trees. Is that kind of the vibe? I think that is.
It could be. And turn here, by the way. And turn here while you're at it.
Lisa Ortega of Nevada Plants, thank you so much for joining us here today. Always a pleasure talking with you.
I love y'all. Thanks for having me. You're great.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, you know what's really nice? When you go and tell a friend, also rate the show. You can do that on any place that you listen to this podcast. Leave us a review there too and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Till then, stay lucky. All right, do you remember where we were?
It's the palms.
That's all we were talking about was the palms, Lisa. Not helpful. Not helpful.